Welcome, everyone, and we're excited you all are here. I'm Jackie Holston, Chairman of Landmarks Illinois Board of Directors. We will begin the annual meeting shortly, and as our members, and guests are coming into the webinar, I want to review a few short housekeeping items. The Zoom webinar is being recorded. The recording will be uploaded to YouTube if you would like to share and this presentation with others who couldn't be here today. YouTube viewers can also select to have presentation translated into another preferred language. To optimize the person who is speaking, we recommend choosing Speaker View, the setting which is found in the upper right-hand corner of your screen under View. You can also turn on or turn off the closed captions at the bottom of your screen. Finally, feel free to type questions into the chat, and we will answer them throughout the program and during the Q&A period at the end. Okay, so it's time to get started. Welcome to Landmarks Illinois Annual Meeting. Once again, I'm Jackie Holston, Chairman of Landmarks Illinois Board of Directors. I would like to thank our generous annual meeting sponsor, Emeritus Board Member Victoria Granicki. Thank you. Victoria, or Vicky as we all know her, has provided us with needed financial support for the staff time that goes into producing the annual report, hosting the annual meeting, and ensuring we make this event free to all members of the public. Thank you again, Vicky. We're excited to celebrate the impact we've made together this year and to share more about the direction that we see for preservation in the future. Let's get through the business at hand. I hereby call the 54th Annual Landmarks Illinois Business Meeting to order. First up is the election of our board members. Landmarks Illinois is led by a volunteer board of up to 37 members who govern, set policy, and ensure we achieve our strategic vision to help people save places for people. These board members contribute their skills, wisdom, and resources to our organization forward. I thank all of you for your generosity and commitment to Landmarks Illinois. I am pleased to introduce former Landmarks Illinois Chairman Gary Anderson, now Chair of our Board Development Committee, to introduce our excellent slate of candidates.
Thank you, Jackie. It has been a privilege to participate in the recruitment process with our Board Development Committee, and I want to thank Jean Follett, Alyssa Freistack, Bonnie McDonald, Jeff Pisa, Sarah Phelan, Sandra Rand, Judy Ty, and Will Tippins for their participation. The Landmarks Illinois website included information on how members could nominate a board candidate for consideration. We received no new candidate names from the membership, so the slate of candidates stands as presented today. The following members for renomination to the board for the election for their third two-year term: Joe Antinovich, Jeff Goulet, Jackie Taylor Holston, Lauren Pacheco, and Sarah Van Domlin. For election to their second-year term, Ron Kluwer, Eric Dexter, Mariah Dagrino, and Magdalena Atarin Navona. The next slate is for newly nominated board members for election for their first two-year term: Rachel Fergens, Lisa Young, Melissa Medek, Jay Rowell, Corinne Smiley, and Rabbi Rob Thomas. Members Jackie Holston and Bonnie McDonald have made a motion to approve and seconded the slate of candidates as presented. Only Landmark Illinois members are able to vote on board candidates according to our bylaws, and a member is someone who has who's been properly completed membership application on file and whose dues have been paid in full for the current year of membership as of today. Please vote now on the entire slate of candidates using the poll that was just launched on your screen. You can pick or click approve, do not approve, or abstain from voting. After you have voted, please click submit. We will pause for 10 seconds to allow votes to be counted.
All right, Gary. The yeses have it, and the board slate has been approved.
Thank you. Welcome to our new and returning board members. Members can now click on the X on their Zoom screen to close out the poll. For information of our members, the Landmark Illinois Board of Directors approved the following officers at its June 17th meeting. Chair, Jackie Taylor Holstein. Vice Chair, Ron Kluwer. Secretary, Jean Follett. Treasurer, Terry Salas. President and CEO, Bonnie McDonald. And Chief Operating Officer, Frank Butterfield. I want to turn over the remainder of the election portion of the annual meeting to Ron Kluwer, Board Vice Chair, to thank the members who are departing the board. Ron?
Excuse me. Thank you, Gary. We're excited for the year ahead, working with the Board of Directors on implementing our transformational plan, a process I was proud to lead. However, we also do so without the voices of many board members who have helped us get to this pivotal moment. I want to thank board members who are departing the board for their years of service to Landmarks Illinois. It is especially difficult to say goodbye to so many engaged, effective, and visionary board members. Peter Bebian has served on the Landmarks Illinois board for 6 years. He has served on the Reinvestment Committee, which he currently chairs. Peter has been an active contributor to the Executive Committee, as well as providing pro bono services for our preservation easements through his company, Simpson, Gumpertz, and Heger. We also thank Peter for SGH's annual corporate sponsorship. We look forward to continuing to work with Peter in his role as an emeritus board member. We also give thanks to Tracy Dillard for her 6 years of board service. Tracy has been deeply engaged in committee service and leadership. She has served on the Executive Committee, Board Development Committee, and Resource Development Committee, the last of which she chaired. We also have seen Tracy in action as the leader of Preservation Forward event, which she chaired this past year, and set an example for major giving. She worked diligently to engage all board members and our almost 20 Preservation Forward ambassadors in this important event for Landmarks Illinois. Tracy has been a voice for the importance of Landmarks Illinois statewide representation. We look forward to continuing to work with Tracy as an emeritus board member. Stacy Grundy joined the board of directors 4 years ago after Landmarks Illinois became a partner with her for-profit museum, Route History in Springfield. Stacy provided expertise to Landmarks Illinois as an entrepreneur, historian, public health official. During her board tenure, Stacy has been a member of the DEI Collaborative, advising on Landmarks Illinois' efforts to make preservation inclusive, equitable, and just. Stacy has received several promotions and awards during her tenure for her public health work and for her efforts as Route History, including presenting to the Congressional Black Caucus last year. She is stepping away to pursue Route History's growth as they take on the project of restoring the Lincoln Colored Home in Springfield, a former Landmarks Illinois most endangered property. We hope to welcome Stacy to the Emeritus Board. We thank Evan John for his 4 years of service as a board member as well. Evan had joined the Landmarks Board to save the James R. Thompson Center designed by his father, Helmut John. Evan now leads the firm John and has several major projects he has recently completed. Like all of us on the board, Evan is busy, yet he has found time to advise our team on issues pertaining to the sustainable development and preservation as part of our strategic planning process. Evan has also recently purchased a home on which Landmarks Illinois has a preservation easement. Due to his many responsibilities, Evan has decided to step away from the board, but maintains his commitment to support Landmarks Illinois. We hope that he will join the Emeritus Board in the future. Jane LaRouche joined the board of directors under a special part-year term in September of 2022, was fully elected by the members of the board in June of 2023. This was following Landmarks Illinois recognizing Jane and her nonprofit, the Laborers Home Development Corporation, with a preservation award for the senior affordable housing project, the Tigehurst Senior Apartments in Paris, Illinois. Jane actively participated on the Strategic Planning Task Force in 2023 as an affordable housing expert and represented a union voice. Jane retired last May, and she's looking forward to spending time with her husband, children, and grandchildren. We hope to welcome Jane to the Emeritus Board. We thank Brad Moeller for his 6 years of board service. Brad has served as an RBIC member, a committee that he also now chairs. This also came with the position on the executive committee, which Brad makes time to always attend despite moving to a recent new position with Project Management Advisors. We thank Brad for his committee and commitment and look forward to continuing to work with him as an emeritus board member. Jeff Peza has served on the board of directors for 6 years, coming onto the board right as he was finishing the rehabilitation of the old Cook County Hospital. Jeff generously donated his expertise and time to the Preservation Fund and Easement Committee, the Board Development Committee, the Real Estate and Building Industries Council, and as a Preservation Forward Ambassador. He has also facilitated generous donations from the Walsh Group as sponsor. We look forward to continuing to work with Jeff as an emeritus board member. Sandra Rand is completing her second 6-year term on the board as board of directors. As she returned from her sunset year in 2019, Sandra was immediately elected as chairman of the board of directors. She served for an exceptional 3 years in this role to ensure the organization had steadfast leadership through the COVID-19 pandemic. She has been a visionary throughout her service, participating on the 50th anniversary task force, the strategic planning task force, and helping to launch the DEI Collaborative and complete its DEI Collaborative roadmap to transformation. Sandra continues to step in where she sees a need with generous application of her expertise, time, and network and financial resources. This includes chairing our spring event, serving as a Preservation Forward ambassador, and making lead gifts and participating on many, many committees, including the Executive Committee, Finance Committee, and Board Development Committee. Saeed Salema has served on the board of directors for 6 years. Saeed generously donated his expertise and time on the Finance Committee, which he has chaired for several years, and on the Executive Committee. He has also facilitated generous donations with pro bono expertise and financial commitment from his company, ZS Architectural Engineering, which is an annual corporate sponsor. We look forward to his continued work, our continued work with Syed as an emeritus board member. Will Tippins began volunteering in the mid-1970s and has never ceased his passion for preservation or for Landmarks Illinois. This is Will's third 6-year term on the board. Will has been the vice chairman and chairman of the board of directors, chaired the Visionary 50th Anniversary Task Force and Strategic Planning Task Force, and was a vital guide to our transformational plan. Like Sandra, Will continually answers the call to serve as committee member when needed, included on the Executive Committee, Board Development Committee, and helping to create the reinvestment program on the Reinvestment Committee. Will has been an organizational ambassador with his team, Related Midwest, securing an annual corporate sponsor from the firm, and their willingness to be a preservation forward influencer in 2024. We look forward to the continuing work with Will as an emeritus board member. Thank you again to all of you for your impactful service to make Landmarks the remarkable organization that it is. Your voices will be missed at the board table, but we look forward to working with you in other ways as engaged volunteers. Now, I'd like to introduce Bonnie McDonald, Landmarks Illinois President, CEO, and Quinn Adamowski, Regional Advocacy Manager, for the balance of our presentation. Bonnie and Quinn, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ron, and good afternoon, everyone. Very glad that you could be joining us today for this important presentation that we're about to give. You know, we have heard from many of you about your concerns for our preservation community as actions have come forward from the federal level since the Trump administration took office. That includes reductions in force, budget cuts, frozen funds and regressive executive orders and legislation. These actions have just added to the challenges that we hear from you that make reusing historic places difficult in communities of all size across Illinois. Now, Landmarks Illinois has been tracking, analyzing, and we've been challenging these actions. We want to share this information with you that we have been collecting as a resource. I do want to note that, of course, we are not professional attorneys. We have assessed and are giving you this as our opinion on the matters that we're going to report to you. But as we are not attorneys or accountants, of course, we advise that you consult your own counsel who will give you advice based on your own particular circumstances. Now, Quinn Adamowski, who Ron just introduced, who's our regional advocacy manager, has truly done a remarkable job, along with our staff members, Frank Butterfield, Suzanne German, Kendra Parzan, at collecting information about what has been happening at the federal level and how it's going to impact us at the state level as well as local. So I'm going to ask, because he is the most knowledgeable person, to give today's presentation about our federal actions impacting historic preservation. So Quinn Adamowski, our regional advocacy manager. Quinn, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie, and good afternoon, everyone. Today, what I'm going to do is provide a broad overview of what we're looking at, what we're seeing at the federal level. We have a lot more detail that we can share at a later time. But ultimately, what we're trying to do here today is really articulate how sobering a lot of what's happening at the federal level is. I do want to underscore that what we're dealing with here is more than just the National Park Service. There's a lot of different federal agencies and organizations that are impacted that also impact the state of Illinois and other states, obviously, across the country. So what I'm going to do today is go through the executive orders that have an impact in preservation, and then discuss what those impacts are on the federal and state organizations and agencies. Then I will also cover the Trump skinny budget and those implications along with HR 1. I do also want to state that much of what's going to be discussed today is in the courts, and we'll have to go through that process. We are going to continue to operate under the threat until we achieve any decisive victories. With that said, here you see on the screen categories of executive orders. And what we did, we categorized them based on our guiding principles. Really just wanted to put them in buckets so that we could understand them in a broad way, while at the same time looking at the specifics as how they relate to impacting different parts of the industry. So with that, next slide, please. So the first bucket is systemic and structural, otherwise known as weaponizing. And these are sort of the foundational executive orders. They're really meant to dismantle bureaucracy. They set the stage for the other executive orders that we're going to cover that are having an impact. And they allowed for agency action within government to do the bidding of the Trump administration. So first, we have here the DOGE. Everybody's aware of that. And then the second is the initial rescissions of harmful executive orders and actions. That's sort of removing the Biden administration's executive orders that dealt with things like Park Service or DEI or any other aspects that impact our guiding principles. And then, of course, there's ending illegal discrimination and restoring merit-based opportunity. This is effectively anti-affirmative action, anti-DEI, removing any protections and promotion for folks who are looking to get into the federal government. Next slide. So with the foundation, the first bucket that I'm going to focus in here is the energy, environment, and climate bucket. These are the executive orders. You can see them here: unleashing American energy, declaring a national energy emergency, immediate measures to increase mineral production, protecting American energy from state overreach, zero-based regulatory budgeting to unleash American energy. And then I also included the DOJ memo, the recent DOJ memo, that states that President Trump has the authority to revoke or modify national monument designations. Ultimately, we think that this is geared towards the same aspect for energy, environment, and climate in terms of deregulation, fast-tracking licensing, increasing mineral extraction and privatization, rolling back environmental protections, and really just prioritizing the federal government's role over those of the state. But in addition to that, we do think that there is concern. There might be implications here for the two national monuments in Illinois, the Emmett Till and Mamie Till Mobley National Monument and the 1908 race riot site. It's not entirely clear yet, but there is concern there. Next slide, please. So what are the impacts of these executive orders? What we're looking at is a prioritization of energy and mining over the environment, expedited permitting, deregulation, reversal of environmental and climate policies, and importantly, very importantly, weakening of regulatory reviews through NEPA and HPA, and then a reduced public input through Section 106 reviews of the SHPOs and the TIPOs. And of course, there's risk of federal land extraction through privatization and the preemption of state and local protections, meaning that states that have strong environmental protections, all these executive orders override them. Next slide, please. So what are the agencies and organizations impacted? At the federal level, we have the Department of Interior, Park Service, Bureau of Land Management, Bureau of Indian Affairs, Geological Survey, ACHP, U.S. Forest Service, Environmental Protection Agency. And at the state level, we have our State Historic Preservation Office, the State Archaeological Survey, IDNR, Illinois Native American Heritage Commission, and of course, local historic preservation commissions and universities across the state. Next slide, please. The second bucket is for history, culture, education, and justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. Here are the executive orders restoring names that honor greatness. This is reference to the Gulf of America that I'm sure everybody's familiar with. We have ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing, ending radical indoctrination in K-12 schooling, commencing the reduction of federal bureaucracy, continuing the reduction of federal bureaucracy, and restoring truth and sanity to American history. Next slide, please. So really, what are the impacts on history, culture, education, and JEDIA? We're looking at as a reduction of bureaucracy and program elimination, the loss of federal funding and grants, the rollback of DEI advancements and regulations, and really just the re-whitewashing of history and suppressing inclusive storytelling across the board. And ultimately, it is politicizing our shared history. And we do also think that there's an impact on economic development related issues. Of course, there's impacts on tourism, the way that people interpret what they're seeing here in this country. Do they want to come here? There's impacts at a local level regarding museums and other trajectories. Can organizations move forward with projects, or are those things stalled? And so ultimately, there's an impact at that level as well. Next slide, please. So what are the agencies and organizations that are impacted? For this, there's quite a few. At the federal level, again, you have the Department of Interior with the National Park Service, Bureau of Indian Affairs, the ACHP, Smithsonian Institute, the Library of Congress, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, the National Endowment for Humanities, National Endowment for the Arts, Department of Education, U.S. Board on Geographic Names, the EPA, Department of Justice. Those are the federal ones. At the state level, we have the State Historic Preservation Office, again, the Illinois State Archaeological Survey, IDNR. Importantly, our partners, Illinois Humanities, who lost 1/3 of their funding through these actions, Illinois Arts Council, and then libraries, museums, and historical societies across the state, along really with all education institutions. And of course, local, regional, statewide, cultural, and civic organizations that rely on federal programs and federal fundings. Next slide, please. The last bucket is on the built environment, housing, and community and economic development. The four here are promoting beautiful federal civic architecture, commencing the reduction of federal bureaucracy, continuing the reduction of federal bureaucracy. These two fit in this bucket as well. And then restoring common sense to federal office space management. Really what we're looking at here are new policies on federal building architecture, going back to a classical phase. And then the last one here, the restoring common sense to federal office space management, is particularly alarming because it deprioritizes using older buildings, and especially older buildings in central business districts. Next slide, please. So you can see here the impacts, which are very broad and very alarming. We have reduced use of historic properties and the prioritization of new facilities. We have removal of agencies from existing historic properties. And largely the concern around the federally owned buildings is there a possible sell-off and privatization, and or is the federal government going to look at demolition? And so there's massive impacts here for preservation and preservation adjacent fields. And of course, there's an impact in downtowns and commercial and historic districts all across the country. And importantly, this could mitigate using historic buildings for affordable housing, which we all know is much needed. And this also puts increased strains on HUD. Next slide, please. So, which agencies and organizations are impacted? At the federal level, all federal office buildings, GSA, the National Park Service, again, the ACHP, and Housing and Urban Development. At the state level, our friends at the State Historic Preservation Office, DCEO, American Institute of Architects, and again, regional, county, and local governments. All of these organizations will be impacted in some way, shape, or form by these executive orders and any court decisions that support them. Next slide, please. So that covers the executive orders, the three buckets. And right now, this is the Trump skinny budget. The proposed budget by the Trump administration really cements the policy statements that are covered within the executive order. It's more like actualizing that vision within a budgetary framework. Now, some of these areas have more substantial cuts, but we are focusing on those that have direct impact on preservation and our guiding principles. So for example, while there's millions of dollars in cuts earmarked for the Department of Education, the $49 million cut you see here is for the Office of Civil Rights. And so again, a lot of these agencies have larger cuts to them, but these are the ones that we focus in on for preservation. So the agencies that are impacted, we have $49 million proposed cut for Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights, $1.35 billion for the EPA, $646 million for FEMA, $1 billion for the Department of Justice, $17.6 billion for the Department of Energy. Department of Commerce is looking at a $624 million cut. Department of Housing and Urban Development is looking at a staggering $31.72 billion cut. Department of Agriculture, $721 million cut. Treasury, $291 million cut. Small agency eliminations comes up to $1.73 billion. And of course, in the traditional sense of preservation, importantly, the Department of Interior is looking at a $2.27 billion cut. So in total, as you can see on your screen, we're looking at almost $60 billion in proposed cuts to agencies that impact preservation adjacent fields. This is a generational shift in how the federal government could operate and the dismantling of bureaucracy at the same time. So when we look at these cuts, these proposed cuts, really what we're talking about is potential defunding of our inclusive history, reduction in affordable housing, underinvestment in already underinvested communities, elimination of grant programs, effectively defunding the resistance, and rolling back environmental protections in the climate economy. So these proposed cuts could have a massive impact, obviously for our entire nation, but especially for our very important field. Next slide, please. Here is the U.S. House of Representatives H.R. 1, otherwise known as the Big Beautiful Bill. And what we see here looking through it is that Congress is being complicit in doing the work that the Trump administration is looking for. In other words, we see the executive orders as statement of policy. We see the proposed budget as a way to actualize that policy. And now we see the complicity of the U.S. House of Representatives in this budget reconciliation bill. Now, a lot of this bill deals with tax credit policy. And so there may be, you can consider that there's limited interaction with the preservation field. But again, if we look at this more broadly, that happens not to be the case. So what are the implications for H.R. 1 on preservation? First, there was no improvement to the federal historic tax credit, which is unfortunate. The good news is that this bill did not eliminate the federal historic tax credit. There was hope that this bill would have reauthorization for the Historic Preservation Fund. That did not happen either. And of course, there's concerns about the HPF because the FY25 funds have not yet been released. And the proposed budget eliminates almost all of the HPF. We also hear at the national parks, while there's defunding here and there, and there's additional funding put into this particular budget, it comes with the understanding that the national parks have to have positive and uplifting messaging in their educational series. In other words, this is an opportunity for Congress to cement the whitewashing of our history. And then it rescinds funds that have already been earmarked for the Forest Service, the Park Service, and the Bureau of Land Management. It rescinds funds for climate-based initiatives. And again, it prioritizes energy and resource extraction. So effectively, Congress with this bill chose not to act in a different way, and they signal that they agree with what the Trump administration is doing. Of course, we have hope that the Senate might pull some of this back, but that's not also a done deal either. So again, all of these are very sobering, concerning issues that we all have to grapple with. And we are here, Landmarks Illinois is here to continue monitoring these and working with our partners. Thank you very much. Bonnie?
Quinn, thank you, and indeed sobering, but as we know, it's having that knowledge allows us to be powerful in our advocacy. So actually, before we move on to Frank for one moment, I just want to add everybody that we're watching H.R. 1, that big, beautiful bill, for other implications that we want to provide you more information in the future, because it may have implications on charitable deductions. So for nonprofit preservation organizations like ourselves and our partners across the state, also some threats to nonprofit status and other tax reform that could impact tax credit partnerships. So we're watching that, as well as other legislation like immigration reform and tariffs as they pertain to both new construction and adaptive reuse. Some of the early indications are that adaptive reuse is becoming preferable because it's not as new material resource intense as new construction, as well as the labor force is different between new construction and adaptive reuse, with adaptive reuse requiring a different and more sort of historic trades skilled labor force. So Landmarks has been a vocal opponent of these federal actions that you just saw that are threatening preservation really at a time when existing buildings can provide us with the things that our country needs. Housing, especially affordable housing, getting that to market faster, jobs in many sectors, of course, economic development in places all across our state, and really the connections that historic places provide for us culturally, as well as telling the full history so that we're knowledgeable about how we've come to be where we are. So we do aim to continue to provide you with more information. We would like to come back to you in several months after the congressional recess, ideally the first week in September, with an understanding several months in the future about where this legislation stands, where the executive orders stand. So please make sure that you are subscribed to our email list and our social media channels so that you can receive information about when we're scheduling that free webinar and how to register. And I just would ask you, please engage with us as a advocate, as a supporter. We are the organization that continues to help people save places for people all across the state. And we can only do that because of your activism and support, like being here today as a member. We do have a donate button on our website homepage at landmarks.org, and I please ask you to contribute today to ensure that the free services that we provide, like you've just heard from Quinn, can continue. Our advocacy, our technical assistance, and our funding programs, all of which are free to the people who ask for them. Now, I'd like to turn the program over so you can hear more about the work that we've been doing in our strategic and operational level from Frank Butterfield, who is our Chief Operating Officer. So thank you, and take it over, Frank.
Much, Bonnie and Quinn. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to highlight some of the organizational success stories from the past year made possible through your membership support. This year, I'm offering this presentation of our annual report in place of a written report. We have streamlined our operations while our communications director, Caitlin McAvoy, is out on caregiver leave as she welcomed her second child. That being said, there are still many ways for you to receive up-to-date Landmarks Illinois content, including through our social media channels and e-blasts. So time doesn't permit me to talk about all of our advocacy projects. At any one time, we have somewhere between 150 and 200 ongoing projects that our advocacy team, Quinn Adamowski, Kendra Parson, and Amber Delgado, are managing. We are working on many of the projects that you read about in the news and on social media. Sometimes our work shows up as front page news, but it also includes exerting influence behind the scenes, bringing resources to the table to get later success. So here are just a few examples of those projects. In August, Landmarks Illinois celebrated the news that the General Services Administration selected viable adaptive reuse as the preferred path for the historically and architecturally significant Century and Consumers buildings in Chicago, and then issued a request for qualifications in November. Landmarks Illinois included the Century and Consumers buildings on multiple most endangered lists, and we have worked together in this effort with our partners at Preservation Chicago, the Chicago Architecture Center, and the National Trust for Historic Preservation. We are monitoring the actions of the GSA and are hopeful that they can carry forward the preferred path of adaptive reuse during these, as you heard, turbulent times at the federal government. In March, the Evanston City Council approved a 40-year lease with Celadon Construction Corporation, which plans a $29 million project to restore and reuse the Harley Clark Mansion as an events venue and hotel. Landmarks Illinois has been advocating alongside local residents for nearly a decade to save and repurpose this iconic building. We included it on our most endangered list in 2016 and worked closely with city officials on their request for proposals process. This year, our work with People for Community Recovery saw significant gains towards saving the historic School Building C in Chicago's far south side neighborhood of Altgeld Gardens. Constructed in 1944, the former high school sat vacant and deteriorating for more than 30 years. Landmarks Illinois included the building on our most endangered list in 2021. In August, the Chicago Board of Education, voted to transfer ownership of the building to People for Community Recovery, and the advocacy organization is working to revitalize the building into the Hazel M. Johnson Institute for Sustainability and Environmental Justice. In March, the former Broadview Hotel in East St. Louis, a 2021 most endangered site, reopened as the new Broadview with 110 units of senior affordable housing. The new Broadview leveraged a variety of critical preservation financial incentives, including the River Edge Historic Tax Credit and the Federal Historic Preservation Tax Credit. incentives that remain in place as a result of the advocacy of Landmarks Illinois. At Landmarks Illinois, we take pride in meeting people at the places they care deeply about, which requires extensive travel for Quinn Adamowski, who serves Greater Illinois as our regional advocacy manager. So this year, Quinn logged 11,300 miles of travel within the state of Illinois, providing technical assistance, presentations, and resources in every corner of the state. So for a comparison here, this mileage would be equal to Quinn traveling the full length of Illinois from the southern tip to the northern border, and then doing that again and again, 29 times in total. So a lot of miles. With neighborhoods and communities all across Illinois requesting assistance, we were thrilled to welcome Amber Delgado in November to the new position of Easements and Advocacy Associate. Amber works with Kendra and Quinn to field incoming advocacy requests and administer the Preservation Easement Program, which protects nearly 550 properties across the state. Landmarks Illinois makes direct investments in people's work to save places, including through our grant programs. This includes our Preservation Heritage Fund Grant, our Barbara C. and Thomas E. Donnelly Preservation Fund Grant, and the Landmarks Illinois Timuel D. Black Jr. Grant Fund for Chicago's South Side. These funds are administered by our Director of Reinvestment, Suzanne German. During the past year, Landmarks Illinois awarded $117,000 in grant funds across the state. In addition, we were able to increase the total amount awarded for the Timuel D. Black Grant Fund for Chicago South Side from $10,000 last year to $50,000 this year. An example of one of those grants is for Reformation Evangelical Lutheran Church in Chicago, on the edge between neighborhoods of Pullman and Roseland. And this church has been unoccupied since 2016. It was previously home to a thriving Black church congregation and also housed President Barack Obama's South Side office when he worked as a community organizer. Onyx 360, a not-for-profit, is seeking to repair the church's two structures, a brick church and a two-story former school building. The $10,000 grant from Landmarks Illinois will help with immediate stabilization needs at the church building, which has suffered substantial water damage, causing structural issues and mold. The nonprofit wishes to reuse the structures to create a community health and wellness center. At last year's annual meeting, you heard from Suzanne German on the work underway following a $1 million grant from the Richard H. Driehaus Foundation to help provide larger low-interest loans through our Reinvestment Program Loan Fund. This year, the nonprofit organization Bandwidth Chicago repaid their $500,000 loan, which supported their project to convert the former Loyal Casket building in East Garfield Park into their headquarters, and also have space to provide free dance, drumline, sound engineering, instrumental, and choral ensemble programs. Construction continues with a ribbon cutting expected this September. This past November, Landmarks Illinois closed on a $300,000 loan to Plant Chicago, a nonprofit dedicated to creating local circular economies, where the community can drop off home items like food for composting, old batteries for recycling, and items to be shared and reused by others. The loan will support the renovation of a former firehouse in Chicago's Back of the Yards neighborhood to improve accessibility and make the building more energy efficient. We included a feature story on these loans in our January 2025 edition of The Arch, a publication of Landmarks Illinois mailed to members. I'd like to thank Caitlin McAvoy, our communications director, for her work on The Arch. And to make this information accessible, The Arch is posted on our website free of charge. And the story on Bandwidth and Plant Chicago was also posted to our Preservation News blog. Landmarks Illinois continues to work on the pipeline for future loans. So if you know of a project and organization that would benefit from this financial investment, we encourage you to reach out to Suzanne. The Landmarks Illinois Richard H. Driehaus Preservation Award is an annual event to celebrate outstanding people and projects from across the state and to inspire others. The 2024 event at Apollos 2000 highlighted people creating affordable housing, creating innovation hubs, event venues, and spaces for communities to come together. We encourage you to learn more about the 2024 awards event on our website and YouTube page, and keep an eye out for our 2025 awards event this November. Landmarks Illinois was proud to serve as a local partner for the 2025 Campaign for Historic Trades Summit held at Higher 360 in Chicago's South Loop. Hosted by the Campaign for Historic Trades, this national convening featured information sessions and network opportunities to explore the past, present, and the future of historic trades training in America. This year, Landmarks Illinois ran ad campaigns to promote our 2025 Most Endangered Historic Places announcements on 2 national public radio stations, WBEZ in Chicago and WSIU out of Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. These 15-second radio ads and placements in e-newsletters reached several million Illinois listeners and new subscribers. I'd like to thank our marketing and communications manager, Lauren Dalton, for her work on the new campaign. Skyline Council, Landmarks Illinois Committee of Young and Emerging Leaders, has grown to over 70 members and continues to host successful events, networking, and educational opportunities. This included Trivia Night, a fun February night of competition and community held at Great Central Brewing in Chicago. The Skyline Council also hosted a March speed mentoring event to learn about the broad range of experiences of people working in preservation-related industries. I also want to thank the Skyline Council for a fantastic joint event last summer with our Real Estate and Buildings Industry Council at the Salt Shed, and provide a promo and save the date for another joint event at Wrigley Field this July 28th. Thank you to Alma Rabronia, Director of Events, as well as our Skyline Council leadership, Emily Sajak, Amanda Marshall, and Kelsey Kuhn, as well as RBIC Chair Brad Moeller. Landmarks Illinois would not be able to do all of this powerful work without the support of our donors and the tireless work of our development team. In October, we raised our collective glasses to toast Maria Rich, our longtime membership manager, thanking her for 35 years of service on the Landmarks staff and wishing her a happy retirement. We also welcomed Kenna Hogan on staff this year as development assistant. Kenna hit the ground running with the annual appeal at the end of 2024, raising just shy of $120,000, exceeding our budget goal by $24,000. We would like to thank Ann Voschel and the Van Dam Charitable Foundation for providing a generous matching challenge gift to that campaign. Landmarks Illinois continues to innovate our operations, which included a move this past May to our new offices and at a co-working space within the Willis Tower, or the Sears Tower as it's still commonly referred to. The move will provide staff with needed collaborative space at the office, the flexibility of remote work, and about $100,000 yearly savings to our bottom line. As part of this move, we've converted our phones to voice over IP service and shifted to an entirely cloud-based data server, providing access to our records and files for our on-the-go workforce. The people who do this work deserve recognition for the thousands of hours spent dedicating their expertise to serve our mission. You heard directly from Bonnie and Quinn about the critical and timely work, and I provided just a glimpse of the work of each of our hardworking staff pictured here. I would also like to thank the contributions of our contractors. With a full-time staff of only 10, we benefit from the work of these contractors as part of our high-level operations. You can see them listed here, but let me offer a thank you to Tara, Zelda, Nikki, Patty and Sebastian, Jeff, our consultants at Mission Plus Strategies, Russ, Star, Layla, and Shauna. In recent years, you've heard from Landmarks Illinois about our work to build an inclusive and equitable preservation movement, including through our guiding principles and the Relevancy Guidebook. I'm excited to share that last week, the Landmarks Illinois Board of Directors adopted our transformational plan. This plan will continue to move the organization forward, ensuring that our mission and our work remain relevant, responsive, and rooted in the communities we serve. Keep an eye out later this summer for a webinar in which we introduce this plan and its impact. Thank you so much for your attention today and for your support, which makes this work possible.
Thank you very much for an informative report, Frank, and we know there's so much more that you could share, so we appreciate having the highlights. And I just want to say thank you to you from the board, from our team and our members for your steady leadership as our Chief Operating Officer. So thank you. I also want to acknowledge, that it takes a village to get all of this done. So, we did not have the time to focus on everyone's work. But I just want to give personal thanks to every one of my colleagues for their incredible contributions to the successes that we have had this year and to the thousands of people that they have served. We have about 6 minutes, everyone, for our question and answer time. I'm sure there's many questions about the federal impacts or what's happening with our advocacy work, our transformational plan. So we would love to take your questions at this time, which you can put into the chat as you see here. And we are pleased to welcome Suzanne German, our Director of Reinvestment, who is going to help us manage the question and answer today. Suzanne, do we have anything to start with?
Yes, I have 2 questions that after Quinn's presentation. So the first one is from Jean Follett. Other state historic preservation offices have laid off large numbers of staff. Can you please explain why this has not happened here?
Thank you for the question, Jean. My understanding is that the state of Illinois heavily funds our SHPO, unlike some other states that rely heavily on historic preservation funding. And so while I'm sure that there will be some impacts to our state historic preservation office as time moves on here, we are confident and we're hopeful that the state of Illinois' funding of SHPO through IDNR will be adequate.
We've also had several comments of thanks for your presentation. So we're full of useful information. There's a question about where this information is available. Is it on the website and will it be updated? What are the plans for sharing this information?
This is not yet available on our website. I think as we move through our processes and we keep evaluating what is going on at the federal level. And again, we also have just a lot of things in flux. And really the point of this today was to provide a broad overview of what's going on. And we do plan on doing something more in detail in September. Now, of course, if there's interest in having this information on our website, we could talk about that internally to see if that makes sense in advance of whatever we choose to do in September.
And there's another question about how to access the transformational plan.
Sure, I will take that one. Suzanne, thank you. The transformational plan, as Frank mentioned, we just passed it last week on Tuesday. So at this point, we are organizing a webinar so that we can talk about it in more depth. And we want to, as a team, think through the work plan for the first year to be able to talk to the members about how we're actually going to implement this plan. So I think the idea is to come to you with more information, again, a free webinar so we can talk through it, answer your questions like we are now, sometime in August prior to the additional federal implications webinar. So keep your eye out for that. Thank you.
I have another question for you, but I also understand my audio is acting a little wacky, so hopefully you can hear me. Fiscal year 2025 HPF funding is being withheld. What approaches are there to release the funds? Have any lawsuits been filed challenging the administration?
I have not seen any lawsuits that have been filed to force the release of the funds. We do know that there is bipartisan support in both the Senate and in the U.S. House of Representatives to see these funds released. We have talked with some federal legislators and their staff to try to better understand what's going on. But obviously there is a national movement to try to get these funds released through NCSHPO, the National Trust for Historic Preservation Action. And so there's a lot of advocacy work around trying to get the funds released. And if there has been, I would please somebody show us where this is at so we can investigate it. I have not seen anybody try any legal action for the release of the funds.
Suzanne, may I add to that for just a moment? It is not pertaining to the release of federal funds, but with regard to lawsuits having to do with what was covered in today's presentation, I just want to call out our partners at Chicago Women in the Trades, who did bring a lawsuit to defend diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, which they depend on for equity around ensuring that women in the trades have a chance to establish themselves and be hired in an environment where it can be very difficult to do so. So we commend our partners, Chicago Women in the Trades, and hope to continue working with them as they pursue that lawsuit. Are there any other questions, Suzanne?
I don't have any other questions.
No other questions in the chat? Well, everyone, just to let you know that you can continue to ask us questions via email. You can also give us a call. As Frank said, we have a great voicemail system now that'll help you direct it to the right person. So please get in contact with us, and we would be happy to discuss any of the matters we've covered today. And with that, we would like to turn it back over to Board Chair Jackie Taylor Holston to close out the annual meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Bonnie, and thank you to all of the team. Listening to the presentations, I'm even more proud to be a Landmarks Illinois volunteer and to chair the board of an organization that is leading the preservation in Illinois and beyond. To know that for over 50 years, the organization has helped people save over 26,000 historic places is surprising and impressive. And I saw in the chat that someone was saying, yes, with our small team that we do so much, and we do. But with over 5,000 requests for our free help each year, we can become easily overwhelmed. We supplement our small but mighty staff with a team of over 130 volunteers from our board, committees, events, and pro bono service providers. I want to take a moment to give all of these generous and committed people their due thanks. Thank you. Our effective organization and expansive impact is possible because of dedication and the wise and passionate people who see Landmarks Illinois' mission as imperative. That includes our incredible board and amazing staff and all of you. Historic places are part of our community's unique identities and as well as our own. They are important and they are worth saving. The more that I learn about what we do and how we do it with limited resources, the more I want to give. And I ask you to consider doing the same in whatever capacity you can. That can be a monthly giver through our Sustaining Partnership membership program, as a program sponsor, or annual corporate sponsor, an annual member, or the Louis Sullivan Society donor, and an event attendee, a volunteer, active social media follower. All of those make a difference in what we do. We thank our Louis Sullivan Society donors who are at our highest level of membership, and they give at least $1,000 per year or more. And you can see on the slide our incredible annual corporate sponsors who also provide valued financial and pro bono service support. Thank you to all of these professionals who do the important work of preservation in the field. There are many ways that you can be part of our community and make a meaningful contribution with whatever amount of time and resources you have available. You can learn about all the ways to give that I just mentioned on our website at landmarks.org, or by contacting Bonnie, who will review your options for making a meaningful gift to power our work. Because we provide our expertise and resources for free, your support truly makes our work possible. You can easily read about how your donation is being put to work to help people save places through our email and print newsletters and social media. So make sure you get on our mailing list. We know that there are big things ahead for preservation across our state, and for Landmarks Illinois, we're excited to share these with you. Now, there being no further business, and the 54th annual meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for joining us and for your continued support of Landmarks Illinois. Together, we are people saving places for people. Enjoy your summer and hope to see you soon.